Hey guys, welcome to your online cafe. Today we will be talking about depression and anxiety amongst kids and young adults. And Dr. Vimal will walk us through some of the signs, symptoms, effects, causes, and how, as parents, we can deal with such conditions. Also, this pandemic hasn't helped because suddenly we're all facing this new way of life, and it could be overwhelming, especially for the kids, because they are going through these online sessions. There are Zoom classes. They're not seeing their teachers, they're not meeting their friends. So a lot of that energy, that physical, mental, emotional energy is so constricted. There is no flow for them. Also for the youth, there is a lot of uncertainty in terms of their future, their school admissions, their job opportunities. So this pandemic has actually extenuated these conditions for all of us, and that's why we have picked up this topic, so that we can ask these questions to Dr. Vimal, and hopefully we will have some breakthrough, some answers, so that we can deal with these situations in a better way. Also, a lot of these topics that I'm bringing in your online cafe have been suggested by some of you. So please feel free to reach out to me if there is any psychological aspect that you would like us to cover in the following weeks. I will be very happy to take them as a part of our conversation in the coming weeks. So let's get on. Let me bring Dr. Vimal with all of us, and let's move on with the questions. As always, feel free to ask your questions and comments. I will get to them at the end of the show. Let me bring in Dr. Vimal. Hi, Dr. Vimal. Welcome
Hi,
again.
good
Please
evening,
go ahead.
and thank you for having me back.
Yes, always a pleasure. Uh,
Yes, it's a
you,
pleasure to be with you.
yeah. So, would you like to quickly do a recap of what we did, and then we can move on with the questions?
Yes, the last time we spoke about the relationship between children and parents, and today we endeavor to progress to the most commonly encountered problem areas in the current times. Children who experience anxiety and depression, and the roles parents play or can play in the relevant challenges. It is not only the children who experience anxiety and depression, but today we are focusing on children with who experience anxiety and depression. Also, uh, I mentioned this last time, but I would like to say that this is an umbrella understanding of the issue. For individual specific needs, this may or may not apply because every person and every situation, every context, every experience is unique. So please keep that in mind.
Um, so let's start with the basic, doctor. What are some of the symptoms of anxiety? Like how can a parent know that a child is suffering from anxiety?
Um, from anxiety, so when a child does not outgrow, see, as children we have some common fears and worries, and children fear the dark, children fear separation from parents. But when a child does not outgrow the fears and worries that are typical in young children, or when there are so many fears and worries that they interfere with school, home, or play activities, when anxiety comes in the way of the child's life, everyday life, and also makes way for some form of dysfunctionality. Um, and the anxiety has been chronic for over weeks or a month, or it gets worse, then an intervention may be required. Examples of some different types of anxiety include things like being very afraid when away from parents, which is called separation anxiety, having extreme fear about a specific thing or situation, such as dogs, insects, lizards, or going to the doctor, which are termed as phobias. Phobias are basically heightened fears. and again, there is an element of dysfunctionality involved. Being very afraid of school and other places where there are people, which is called social anxiety. Being very worried about the future and about bad things happening, which is general anxiety. This has an element of something that we call catastrophizing, that the mind wanders off to the worst that can happen and doesn't think of the reality or the best that can happen. Um, Having repeated episodes of sudden, unexpected, intense fear that come with symptoms like heart pounding, having trouble breathing, or feeling dizzy, shaky, or sweaty is called a panic disorder. Very often we call them panic attacks. Um, this You said how could parents, you asked how can parents identify that there is anxiety in children. This is a behavioral change which is subject to observation. This is not something that is a part of the personality makeup of a child. It is a change that you will notice, or the teacher may bring it out, or the friends may say something to the parents, or the parents may themselves observe about the child. Anxiety may present as fear or worry, but can also make children irritable and angry. Anxiety symptoms can also include things like trouble sleeping, as well as physical symptoms like fatigue, headaches, or frequent and unexplained stomach aches. Some anxious children keep their worries to themselves, so symptoms are easy to miss. In this case, parent needs to keenly observe the child.
One thing that you just mentioned is that if there is a sudden onset of these conditions, so is there a possibility that so what if the kid always has some phobia or some fear? Is that also considered a part of being of anxiety, or that's a part of the personality trait that the child has?
Which is in case the child anyways has anxiety, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, so like for example, if a child always had, like, from the time he or she was born, there are certain fears and anxiety that he always had. uh, does that also come under the umbrella of anxiety, or is it only when there is a change in behavior of the kid? So what I'm trying to get at is there a need for concern in either case, or there is a need for concern when there is a sudden change in behavior?
Yes, most of the times it is about the sudden change or a slow change. The intensity of the change is what matters, not the time taken for the change to come around. Some fears and worries are typical in children, like persistent or extreme forms of fear and sadness could be due to anxiety or depression. But it is the sudden change or the slow change. And it's also, there are situations that you might want to look out for, which we can come to later in one of the other questions, perhaps, or I'll just mention it anyways. So when we talk about the causes of anxiety.
Yeah. So once you have established that there is anxiety in a kid, what should the next step be for a parent?
Um, the parent's role in anything that manifests in a child is very important. However, specifically for anxiety, um, they need to, many well-meaning parents try to protect anxious kids from their fears. But overprotecting can actually make anxiety worse. So, some of the pointers that I can point out uh, that can help parents cope with anxiety without reinforcing the anxiety is, don't try to eliminate the anxiety, do try to help a child manage it. What this means is that the best way to help kids overcome anxiety is to help them learn that there is anxiety and develop an ability to tolerate it. And over time, the anxiety will diminish. Um, Again, this can be taken for therapy, and there could be specific thoughts, new thoughts that um, can the therapist can point out, which can help the child learn how to eliminate anxiety. um, the second is that don't avoid things that just don't avoid things that cause the child to become anxious, uh, just because it makes the child to become anxious. For example, exams is not something that one can avoid, and around exam time there are a lot of children who have anxiety issues. So helping children avoid the things they're afraid of will make them feel better in the short term, but it'll reinforce anxiety for the long run. So there needs to be a reality check. There needs to be a conversation around acceptance of life events, because there will be things that life will throw at them, and it is their
Yes.
um, resilience that needs to be built up. Um, Another one is express positive but realistic expectations, which is don't promise a child that she fears whatever the child fears will not um, will make them feel better. Very many times we say sab theek ho jayega, tum fikr mat karo, but this can again reinforce anxiety in the long run. So, and it is not realistic. So don't promise a child that what she fears won't happen, that that she won't fail the test, because you don't know. But do express confidence that she'll be able to manage no matter what happens. This helps for the child to tap into their own resource of confidence. Respect her feelings, but don't empower them. Validating feelings doesn't mean agreeing with them. So if a child is terrified about going to a doctor, do listen and be empathetic, but encourage her to feel that she has the resilience, she has the adaptability, and she has the courage to face her fears. Um, Next is don't ask leading questions. Encourage your child to talk about her feelings, but try not to ask her leading questions like, are you anxious about the big test? Instead, ask open ended questions. How are you feeling about the science exam or the maths exam or whatever it is? Another one is that don't reinforce the child's fears. Avoid suggesting with your tone or tone of voice or body language that maybe this is something that you should be afraid of. No, there is nothing that a child needs to be afraid of. Encourage them to and think and decide for themselves as to what is it that they would like to be joyous about, and what they want to be scared about or what they want to be sad about. It's okay. They can be different. They do not need to clone a parent or do it because it's the parent's expectation of them to be fearing. Another one is be encouraging. Let your child know that you can appreciate how hard she's working, and remind them that the more the child tolerates her anxiety, the more it'll diminish, because it's like, the more you fear, the larger the fear becomes. So if you learn to face your fear, slowly over time, it will diminish because your thoughts change. Yet another one is trying to keep the anticipatory period short, um, which means that when we are afraid of something, the hardest time is before we do it. So if a child is nervous about going to school, don't discuss it until you need to, because that gives them lesser time to prep themselves or set themselves up for feeling anxious. Um, One more is think things through with the child. So sometimes it helps to talk through what would happen if a fear came true. Like, for instance, if a child is scared of lizards and the lizard actually drops on the child, um, for some kids, having a plan can reduce the uncertainty in a healthy and effective way. So if you talk about supposing a lizard does fall, what are the options for the child to do? And I think one last is that try to model healthy ways of handling anxiety. Don't pretend that you don't experience stress and anxiety and you have no fears, but do let your kids hear you or see you managing it calmly, tolerating it, and feeling good about getting through it. So if they see you coping well with it, they will learn, because children learn through modeling.
We have a
I
question related.
mean,
Sorry, go
yeah.
ahead. We have a question related to anxiety, but by Vidya, I'm just going to read it now. Can you have sporadic incidents of anxiety attacks? For example, can you have it once and then never again? But that once was very intense and overpowering.
Yes, you could have it, because if it's anxiety also has a good hand-to-hand relationship with sudden shocks and sudden spurts of any kind of event that life may throw at us, and we may not be prepared. And when it is sudden, even if it's a pleasant surprise, like, somebody may come over to your place at 12 midnight to wish you a birthday, the first thought usually is, oh, I'm not dressed or I'm not equipped. So if it is something which is crisis or challenging, yes, it could happen once and then never happen again, because maybe it depends on what you think in that moment. And if you think whatever you have thought is empowering enough, you may never have to go through anxiety again. Yes, it is possible. It's rare, but it's possible.
And how do you empower the kids to face that phobia? Like what are other, so one I guess is making them open to therapy, right, and I'll come to that question later. But at home, while being home, while as parents or friends, how can you empower them to face that fear? Like you took an example of, say, lizard, right? Now if somebody is afraid of the lizard, they will see the lizard and react. And like how can you on a daily basis empower them to face it?
The 10 points that I mentioned, when we spoke about the role that parents play, these are the ways to empower them. And if the problem still persists after this, then specific individual intervention is required. So I suggest that they may be taken for therapy. But even when they are taken for therapy, it's important that the parent also remains engaged with the therapist, so that the child sees that it's okay and it's not only the child which is having a problem. And it's, the parent is equally engaged and involved, which will then help them to seek help.
Now coming to depression, Dr. Vimal, what are some of the symptoms of depression? Like how would you know that a child is undergoing depression?
Um, so some of the symptoms of anxiety and depression are overlapped. Some of the behavior changes that I've already mentioned. Others are that occasionally, when we talk about depression, it's important to clarify that occasionally being sad or feeling hopeless is a part of every child's life, just like adults' life, because there are days when we feel good and there's days when we don't feel so good. However, some children feel sad or uninterested in things that they used to enjoy, or feel helpless or hopeless in situations they are able to change. When children feel persistent sadness and hopelessness, that may be leading to depression, or they could be depressive. Sorry, excuse me. Um, so again, it's important to highlight that it's a behavior change. It is not a part of the personality makeup, because children are born happy. They're born loaded with self confidence. They are born seeking attention. And they feel that they're entitled to that attention that they seek. So examples of behaviors often seen in children with depression are like some of them are like feeling sad, hopeless, or irritable a lot of the time, not wanting to do or enjoy doing fun things, showing changes in eating patterns, eating more or eating less, showing changes in sleep patterns like oversleeping or not being able to sleep, showing changes in energy, being sluggish, or also restlessness. If it's restlessness, then it's probably anxiety, which has led to depression or depressiveness. Having a hard time paying attention. So, demotivation, unenthusiasm, feeling worthless, useless, or guilty. This is a big one. Feeling worthless, useless, and guilty is a big symptom because it's a very overpowering, overwhelming feeling, and it's also hard to break out of. Showing self-injury and self-destructive behavior. This is, let's say, a little bit when the depression has intensified a little bit, then there may be signs of self-injury or self-destructive behavior. Um, Extreme depression can lead a child to think about suicide or also plan for suicide. And this, when we speak about children, we talk about youth ages between 10 to 24 years. And suicide is among the leading causes of death, at least in the current times. Some children may not talk about their helplessness and hopelessness and the thoughts as well, and may not appear sad. Um, the parents need to be very keenly attuned to the child's moods and behavior changes in case they have children who are not very expressive or vocal about their issues. Depression might also cause a child to make trouble or act unmotivated, causing others not to notice that the child is depressed, or to incorrectly label the child as a troublemaker or lazy. So these are some of the warning signs, Sonal, that could be reflective of depression in children.
Okay. So I guess one of the things that you mentioned in both anxiety and depression is sudden change in behavior. So
Yes,
any sudden change in behavior which takes you to a negative state of mind, we have to be, then you have to pay extra attention to why that's happening, and that could be a leading symptom for either anxiety or depression.
right. Two things that I forgot to mention is one is oversensitivity to rejection, or just a general sense of oversensitivity, and the other could also be when children become socially withdrawn, like they're not meeting their friends as often, um, and and also when the grades fall. One of the leading signs is when the academic grades begin to fall.
And how does either anxiety or depression affect the life of the kid who is going through that? Uh, you know, it could.
Um,
One of the things that you said is actually it could even lead to self harm. But how does it affect their own life when they go through anxiety or depression?
because it affects their own lives because they experience the behavior change before the parents will notice it, before others will notice it. And the irritability and anger is something that will break connection for them because imagine a child who's irritated all the time. Nobody would want to talk to that child. Parents will be scolding him. So it's whereas there is pain inside, but there is also pain of rejection from the outside because it kind of elicits that response from people. People don't want to be around angry children. um, and then there is this continuous feeling of sadness and hopelessness, which is again a very difficult thing to cope with, because it makes, there are physical manifestations of sadness. There is no energy, and one doesn't want to get out of bed, and there is social withdrawal, and there is, like I mentioned, there's increased sensitivity, there's changes in appetite. So if supposing there is low energy and one is not, and the child is also not feeling hungry, then there are very bleak chances of the energy level going up. It could also be that the child is feeling really low and also resorting to a lot of sugar intake, um, which will then affect the child's body and mind in a different way as well. Then there may be vocal outbursts of crying, which is again very difficult for the child to explain, because most of this is unexplained as when the child experiences it. There's difficulty concentrating. There may be falling, in the grades, the achievement, the academic achievement of the child. How will, and the parents ask, "Tumhe kya ho raha hai? Why are your grades falling?" The child has no explanation, because they are themselves confused as to what the changes that their experiences are due to. There could be physical complaints that they deal with, like stomach aches and headaches, and don't respond to treatment, which then it becomes a vicious cycle of its own, because if they don't respond to the treatment, then the hopelessness increases. There's also reduced ability to function during events and activities at home with friends. There could be a marriage at home or some form of celebration in school, extracurricular activities, and they don't want to participate because there's no interest. The feelings of worthlessness, guilt are also very hard for the children to experience, and because a child's mind is not equipped to go through these feelings, they don't know what's happening. All they know is that there is impairment, and it makes it hard for the child to cope with issues at the mental, emotional, and physical platforms, because the mind wants to match our body and the body is struggling. So when the body struggles, the mind in turn struggles more. And that is how it persists and intensifies at times as well.
Now, what are some of the situations that can actually lead to anxiety and depression amongst kids and youth? Some of I know it's again a very situational question, but what are some of the general situations or causes that can actually affect a child towards being depressed or feel the anxiety?
Um, can I answer this together, like for anxiety and depression in children?
If you think that it's up to you, how do you want to address them? Like if you want to address
Yeah,
them
because
separately.
some of the causes are like they're pretty connected for both. So it'll just prevent repetition.
Yeah, so
Um,
yeah, that ask them together because I would imagine that the causes could actually be. So yeah, please answer them
Yeah,
together.
they're similar. Also, if there is anybody who wants to ask specifically something, they can message. They can message you, or write it to you.
Yeah,
So
and
some
uh,
of the sorry, what are you saying, Sonia?
a lot of times what happens is, so I just want to say this to the audience that if you feel apprehensive about sending your questions on this platform, please feel free to send it to me on the WhatsApp, and I'll ask them without the name also. So please go ahead, Dr. Vimal.
Yeah. So some of the possible causes for anxiety and depression in children are that um, things that can happen in a child's life can be stressful and difficult to cope with. But this is from the child's interpretation of what is happening. It is not from the parental interpretation of what is happening. Um, so, for example, moving a house, moving schools, a change of country or culture, or a sudden change of lifestyle. Like I've spoken to children, whose parents have been in flourishing businesses, and suddenly they lost a lot of finance, and the lifestyle had to come down to the basics. There, it has repercussions on the child, though the parent may feel that we are providing for the children whatever they require, but there is that change that is unexplained, like I said, the child's mind is not equipped to um, understand as much logic as an adult mind is, and so it does have a repercussion. So one is the, the sudden changes. um, there could also, it could be, um, other causes are like loss, serious illness, death of a loved one, violence at home, or abuse can lead some kids to become anxious. Abuse amongst parents, like domestic violence or verbal abuse. Or it could be a milder version where the parents are constantly fighting and quarreling with each other, or having arguments. Could also lead to some children becoming anxious and also depressive. Um, it could be learned behavior. Like if there is a parent who is anxious, who's always afraid of things, or is overly cautious, or is depressive, it could be a learned behavior that the child may choose to adapt.
Sure.
Growing up in a family where others are fearful or anxious can also lead to teach a child to be afraid of, like with so this is different from a parent being anxious or depressive. Like, we still have people who live in joint family systems, and there could be other members of the family, like a power family member, like a grandparent or a grandmother, who um, who is anxious, who's angry, or who's depressive, commands a lot of discipline and obedience, and is not aware of the current times, that there has been a transition from when they brought up their children to how children are being brought up today. That could also lead to, so I guess what I'm saying is that, overcritical parenting styles, um, we have the we have the option of bringing up thinking children or disciplined obedient variety. So this is something that the parents need to choose, because when we bring up thinking children, they will have a lot of questions, and they will break rules, and they will not conform to everything that you say, but they will be free of anxiety and depression. So, family secrets is one of the other causes. Like some families have secrets around suicide, somebody who committed suicide, alcoholism. Also, I have also known of families who have family secrets around one of the family members in the past having been impaired, like physical handicap or mental retardation, and they want to keep it a secret. This also causes this can also be one of the causes for anxiety and depression, because it's hard to keep a secret. It's a lot of pressure on the child to keep the family secret going. Bullying at school or college could also be one of the other causes. And I can't really think of any others besides this, but also, oh yeah, one of the other things is improper or uneducated, or very high risk taking exploration with drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Because
Experimentation.
yeah, that could also make a child anxious and depressive. It could be a result of the chemical reaction in the brain, or it could also be because it is not well informed, and the child then gets into the fear trap of not knowing what the substance is really causing them to feel or behave, or the mood swings that the substance may bring around. So these are some of the causes.
Okay. And is does genetic play any role in the anxiety and the depression aspect of the kids, or it's
Um,
really
Anxiety and depression, there has been well, there have been a lot of research and studies which have gone around, but so far there is no established grounded study which says that it is genetically transmitted. uh, but of course there are a lot of studies which go to say that this could be learned behavior. because it's an, if parents are modeling it, then the children, one of the children in the family could
Could
take to
actually
it. Yeah, especially if the parent gets a lot of like a lot of attention. If if one of the parents is depressed, is on the bed, and the other one pampers, or there are other family members who pamper. So it's also to do with the kind of
attention.
treatment they get. Yeah, the way they're treated. And
So they could actually learn this behavior to gain that attention also.
yes, because they see it as working in the family. They see it as working for the person.
For the person.
There is attention and there is a lot of care and protectedness around people who are sick. So yeah, so the child feels that, oh, that's a nice way of getting.
The attention.
Mm.
Also, a lot of times what happens is, Dr. Vimal, that so even if we establish that the child is can't hear, Priyanka, what cannot you can't hear? She's saying can't hear. Who cannot you? Can you be more specific? Can you not hear me? Can you not hear Dr. Vimal? Dr. Vimal, can you hear me?
I can.
And I can hear you. Priyanka, could you be more specific about what is it that you cannot hear?
I'll raise the laptop, so maybe, I don't know.
But I can hear
Maybe
you
this
clearly.
helps. Maybe this
So
helps.
what I was saying was a lot of times we established that the child is going through depression or anxiety. They're not open to counseling, or they're not open to therapy, right? And I know a lot of parents actually struggle in that aspect as to how to make a child open to go to a counselor, open to go to a therapist. So how can we help the kid that in that aspect?
Um, See, first of all, whether it's anxiety or it is depression, it is a family issue. It is not only the issue of the child who's affected. So, and the goal is to bring up resilient and well adapted children. So, if that is the goal, then, like I said, the parent needs to motivate the child by engaging, encouraging, and becoming a part of their journey. They need to walk the worry, the stress, the fear, the anger, the depression, whatever it is that the child is going through, with the child to help the child heal. Um, have so when have the hard conversation with your children and be open to receiving what the children say. If if the child says कि हाँ मेरे को बहुत ज़्यादा डर लग रहा है, and the parents say तो इसमें क्या बड़ी बात है, कोई डरने की कोई बात ही नहीं है, तुम्हारे पास सब कुछ तो है, सब कुछ तो कर रहे हैं हम. The child will not speak up. It's like putting a lid on a boiling pot, and it's only a matter of time when it'll blow up. So modeling balance is of prime importance and significance to and for our children. So respond, not react. If you respond, your child will talk. And when they talk, and when they express, and when they share, you will know what the problem is. Because if you don't know what the problem is, you wouldn't know how to help them. Anxiety is a symptom of a problem. Depression is a symptom of a problem. It is not the problem. Another one of the myths around parenting is that we want to have happy children. It's our duty to bring up happy children. No, it is not our duty to bring up happy children. It's no parent's duty to bring up a happy child. A parent's duty is to bring up. We need to help our children learn how to adapt healthy ways to generate their own happiness and joy. If they learn that, then, because you can only make them happy till a certain age, but after that age, how are they going to find happiness? They need to know how to do that.
That's a very
that
good
is
point.
that is what parenting is about. it is not doing for the child, it is helping the child learn how to do it for themselves, because every human being comes with immense resource, and whether it's parents, whether it's children, and regardless of age, gender, sex, regardless of age, gender, caste, creed, religion, social, economic background, every human being has the resource to tap into their own strengths and empower themselves. It's only what is counseling all about. It is all about empowering the individual to look within and say, you are adequate, you are abundant from inside, you have the resources. Tap into the resources for your strength, courage, positivity, changing your thoughts, relating to people better, and all these symptoms will vanish.
That's a very good point you made, doctor. I think we as parents, we all struggle with that because we want to see our kids happy. And, so rightly said that we are not here to make them happy. We are actually here to tap that resilience, that adaptability so that they can create their own happiness. Because once they are out and about in life, I think it's the experiences and the reactions to those situations is what is going to define their life for them. And
Yes.
there's one thing nobody taught anybody.
Yeah.
Nowadays, because of the awareness parenting, I mean, there is a lot more awareness in terms of the
Oh,
parenting, and that's why we bring up these issues. When we were
yeah.
growing up, we didn't know any better. So I think whatever learning has come to us is it has been experiential mainly. So
Yeah.
yeah, thank you for bringing that point up. I think it's a very very important.
Yeah, it's also like, as parents, we do know how to teach our children to become financially independent, to become physically independent. We don't allow them to use diapers when they're 16. We don't allow them to, hold our hands and walk when they're 16. So we do wean them off in many ways. But
Correct.
somehow I think more work is required on the mental and emotional front, because we don't live in the time and age where we can make decisions for them. They need to be equipped. We do not need to police them. They need to police themselves, and that is the this the skills that we need to pass on. But we can't give our children anything we don't have. So most of the times I say that, instead of taking your child to the counselor and saying fix the child, please go with the child and say, I will also be here, I will also see you,
Yeah. I think
because nobody is perfect.
yeah. I think somewhere as parents we have to just build the confidence in the kids that we are making an effort to understand them. We are making an effort, to be on the same page. I think as long as they see the effort, I think the kids also are very open to communication, in spite of us probably not being able to completely bridge the gap. But at least if even if there is an effort, I think it makes a huge positive change in the kids because they feel like they're being accepted, they're being accepted, they're being heard. At least, mom and dad are trying to understand us. So
Yes,
that's,
yes.
yeah. There was
I
one
would
comment.
like to add, Sonal, here that, if in case by the end of this talk we are sounding like we are criticizing parents, we are not, because I do understand that it's a subconscious, even when the child decides to adapt anxiety and depression as a coping mechanism, it is. It is a subconscious decision. The child is not aware of it. So I know that parents really mean well for their children, but we are trying to highlight these points so that they can better the relationship and the connection, because that's what we are talking about. So
Yeah.
just for the sake of clarity, I wanted to highlight that. Thanks.
There is one comment and from Vidya Raghunathan. She's saying, I've been identifying a lot with the social isolation and confinement issues that are getting highlighted in the Sushant Singh Rajput case. I came through these issues and I know the big positive change it brought to my own mental disposition and self image. That's another big thing that is, one of the, and actually, one of the things that you also spoke about is how isolation and depression can actually lead to self-harm tendencies.
Yes.
And this pandemic is actually also not helping Dr. Vimal at all because everybody is confined. Everybody has these confined areas. Parents are working from home. The kids are studying from home. And from what I hear, I think the pressure is a lot more because there is for parents, it doesn't end anywhere. Like the phone calls are coming. So, is there anything that can be done if the parents are dealing with these situations in during pandemic, especially during pandemic? How can they make it
Um,
better, knowing that the child is probably undergoing depression or anxiety for that matter?
there are three basic fears. I think I mentioned it in one of the talks earlier, but um, to make the question relevant, there are three subconscious fears of every human being: the fear of death, the fear of the unknown, the unknown meaning the fear of a natural disaster, and there is also the fear of people, but also from people. So, like, we fear of people harm, but we also fear harm for our own loved ones. Okay, so these are the three subconscious fears of every human being. And the pandemic has elevated all three because there is fear of death. It is a natural calamity in a different way because it's global, and it's a pandemic, it's not an epidemic. Um, and the third one is that when if anybody in the family is going out, we fear contain contract to nahi ho raha virus. Yeah, we want to keep everybody safe, and we are also fearing the human beings, other human beings. Like, when we are crossing roads, we don't want to come in contact with anybody, we want to protect ourselves, all of that. So see, what happens here is that we are aching for connection. We want to be connected, and we want relationships, we want um, companionship, but we are also pushing away our primary needs because we can't really have them. And
Yeah,
that is why
true,
there is isolation.
true.
So it is a time where it's very conflicting, because and the world has seen these times earlier, like, even when it was whether it's the Auschwitz, or whether it's other earthquakes and volcanoes, and which has affected when I think one of the last ones was SARS.
Right.
So the world has gone through this. It's okay to feel isolated, but again, I would say that there are things that every individual needs to tap into their own resource to handle the isolation and to come out of it. You do not need to remain isolated, is all I'm saying. No, it is not. It doesn't have to be आइसोलेशन है तो मतलब हम बेबस हैं. हम बेबस नहीं हैं. हम अपना रास्ता निकाल सकते हैं. Connect with whoever you can. फोन करो, वीडियो कॉल्स करो, हॉबीज कल्टिवेट करो. It needs to be there needs to be a change in activity. Not everything can work out in your headspace. So isolation is not something you can take care of by thinking about it. Isolation needs activity to diminish.
Yeah. Somewhere I was also reading, Dr. Vimal, that now it's not about self isolation anymore. It's about creating a bubble. So you create your own bubble. Maybe you have your 4 or 5 friends who are also being responsible, and you meet them because we are here for a long haul. And isolation is not going to help because it's not. If you're not contracting COVID, you may actually end up having your own mental depression or some form of mental health issue. So I
Yeah,
think bubble.
absolutely. Absolutely, Sonal. You put it, your dot on that. In fact, there's already a lot of research which says that it is not the coronavirus which is a problem, but it's the fear, which is the pandemic. Coronavirus is only the trigger for that fear, and fear is the real pandemic.
Also, when you fear something, in any case, your vibrational energy is going down. So I
Yes.
think fear also comes with, there are more chances of you contracting the disease when you fear it, because your vibrational energy is going down. And here it's all about your immunity and the energy. There's not much you can do other than being responsible, of course, you can only build your immunity and just be in the best version of whatever you can be in such a state, in mind
Absolutely.
and soul, I guess.
Yes, it's mind over body. So
Yeah,
if you're
I
okay in
know.
your mind, your body will be immune.
Yeah, yeah. So I have come to the end of my questions, and I let me just quickly go through the comments and see if there are questions that I've missed. I always end up doing this to my screen for some reason. Uh, no, I think we are. Is there anything else you would like to add, Dr. Vimal, before I wrap up the show? Because I'm done with my questions. Is there anything else you would like to add on to whatever we have discussed?
Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you. My heartful gratitude to all the people who tune in to listen to us. Thank you, because it's for with the contribution of each listener that we are able to make this possible. So, thank
Well,
you.
actually, thanks to you for being a part of the show. And like I said when I started my show, that if there are any issues that you would like me to cover in the following weeks in your online cafe, please feel free to reach out to me, because most of the topics that we are bringing in have been suggested by you, and we will be very happy to pick up the topics that you feel is relevant, to this time, because we are, that's what the effort is towards, so that it can help us all in the situation, and help us deal with this pandemic in a better way. So with that, we I'm going to wrap up the show. Thank you again, Dr. Vimal, for being on the show. Always a pleasure to have you. I've been getting so many messages saying, she is so good, she's so sorted, like, the answers she gives. Some people actually go back and they hear the. Oh, by the way, this is also available on YouTube at just underscore Sonal. So if somebody has missed out on the conversation, it is always also being recorded on YouTube at the same time. So please feel free to go back, and if you have to do some quick notes again, you can always hear the YouTube, because a lot of people are doing that, because sometimes it's not easy to accumulate everything in one go, so they go back, listen to it, and then make notes. So on that note, see you again on Thursday on Bloomberg Chat, and then again on your online cafe. This is just Sonal signing off. So happy to have you all on board with me, and thank you for your messages and your encouragement. I will be back soon. Bye. This is Jess Sonal signing off.
Thank
My
you.
my screen is again off. I don't know why I always do this to my screen at the end of the show. Okay, guys, it's gonna take me some time now to exit.